Jon Bowerman.
I'm the guy that's going to be thinking 10 moves ahead, and you're asking the question, why are we playing chess? Founders, they just deal with risk on a daily basis. Every decision that they're making has some element of risk to it. There's never 100% certainty. And you see how many of them get taken advantage of because they're just getting sold a service and no one's really invested in the outcome of what they are growing. Many of those cliches, the iron sharpens iron. In order for that to happen, there has to be two pieces of iron. AI at its core, it gives people the ability to delegate intelligence. That's essentially what generative search is it's the ability to offload the research and give you the executive summary.
There's 8,000 things you can do in marketing. What's unique about like our approach or your operational approach kind of hits on the stealth method or platform?
Yeah, marketing is chaos.
This is the unfiltered truth about entrepreneurship. Raw, no BS, no sugarcoating. Welcome to Entrepreneur Intel. I'm your host, Wes Matthews. Each episode, we'll learn from experienced founders and uncover the top 5% learnings that led to their success in all things personal, family, and business. This show is sponsored by Stealth Consulting, delivering clear marketing strategies, ROI, and no surprises. All right, I am pretty excited for today because I want to introduce Jon Bowerman. So Jon Bowerman and I have been business partners for, almost 20 years now?
Yeah, 2 decades.
Almost 2 decades. So Jon, I'll introduce Jon. So Jon Bowerman, Michigan native, original co-founder in a company called High Level Marketing. He and I were partners. We had that company for about 15 years. Outside of that, like CMO, CTO, pretty heavily exposure to all the C-suite of services in an entrepreneurial company. Most recently has repartnered back up with me in a company called Stealth as he's co-founder. And outside of that, Jon, super artistic, likes to give back. He's wrote a couple books, which we can touch on, loves to sand sculpt. And welcome, Jon.
All right. Yeah, look forward to this.
So yeah, it's a little bit different that, obviously we're business partners, but I thought that this would be kind of interesting as I think we have a unique dynamic in the entrepreneurial world that a lot of entrepreneurials strive for, which is, you and I adopted this methodology called EOS. Let's kind of dive in and talk about that maybe where, how do you think EOS or like the visionary integrator concept has helped us scale like high level marketing and like the creation and the scale of Stealth so far?
Yeah, I think, what I found, Wes, is any partnership, especially business, you really have to have someone. There's contemplating and there's calculating. Right? I use one of the great ways I used to describe our relationship early on to people, which was, I'm the guy that's going to be thinking 10 moves ahead in chess, right? And you're asking the question, why are we playing chess? Right? I'm the calculator, you're the contemplator, and we need that. I also use the example of you could helicopter both of us down into a group of 10,000 people, and within an hour, everybody's name, everybody's spouse's birthday, and the color of their dog collars. Right? I might know 2 people, and that was an accomplishment. We just have very different personalities, different ways that we show up to the world, and also the chance that either one of us is going to be a rock star on any given day. We're going to have off days, and to be able to pick each other up on those days that, one of us just isn't their best, keeps it going. It's just that there's so many of those cliches, the iron sharpens iron, everything like that. Well, in order for that to happen, there has to be 2 pieces of iron. And I think that's where, we really show up for each other, and it compounds. I mean, we are the classic example of 1 + 1 is more than 2. It's 3.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think, I think we discovered EOS in like 2014 or something. It was probably one of my like visionary tirades or like, let's try this because something's not feeling right. But I think for whatever reason, EOS stuck with me because I saw a lot of success with a lot of other companies, and I think even before that though, like you and I were kind of operating as like visionary integrator CEO, COO before we even knew what that really was. But I think learning about what it really was and putting some like organized structure around chaos of entrepreneurs. And look, we were young. We're kind of young still, but I really didn't know what I was doing. Like we had an idea. I want to make a bunch of money. I think we're like, yeah, let's like make $1 million or millions of dollars. And all of a sudden we wake up and there's a lot of employees and a lot of problems. But I think for us, because I get that question a lot of like, you know, I should just do this thing myself, and I'll make all the money. And it's like, yeah, but that's even harder. And it's also like kind of lonely. And I think at some point, like you have to take a step back as an entrepreneur and be like, I'm best in the world at these like three things. I think when you first start, you think you're awesome at everything, and then you realize like you're not. And then I think what we did really well was like, okay, I think, or I thrive when I'm here. And I think for you and I, it was like I thrive to the point of like, landing in the jungle of 10,000 people. Like you were able to kind of dive in on delivery and operations and like, keep the trains on the tracks and all that stuff, which I think is like a true COO. And I've always had that ability of like vision and like seeing things differently as other people didn't see. And what I want to note on that though, that doesn't mean like you don't think like that or I don't think operationally. It's just that's not our defaults and that's not where we thrive. So I think what we do really well is complement each other on like challenging those when they need to be challenged, or like, but I also think we've had a great job. We've done a great job, I think, like the give and take, right? Probably more recently than before, where it's like, I don't really care how the sausage gets made sometimes. And you're probably like, I don't care how he lands into the jungle, like whether it's helicopter by jet or by camel, like who cares? Like there's just certain things that you don't care about. But thinking about that, right? So like we had a really successful digital marketing company, started in 2009. We sold it in 21. We both stayed there for a couple years, right? Some good, some bad, some ugly. But when we started talking about stealth again and repartnering, like what was sort of like the vision of the future, right? Because we're both kind of we both kind of left this world of digital marketing, website, SEO, which was really prominent in the era we did it. But we both kind of made a decision on like, it's probably time to like take some chips off the table, sell this company. The crystal ball was kind of telling us either there might have been some impending doom or like AI, before AI was really a thing. Like we both had those like senses. So like why stealth, or like what did you kind of see differently coming out from the experience we've had?
Yeah, I think, one, I mean, how many, we probably plotted out 1,000 different growth models, and this is what our company is worth, and how exciting that is, right? But there's the idea that you're going to get an offer, and then there's an actual real offer, and those are two very different things. And a lot of people who have an idea of getting an offer never get one, and you have to, we weren't looking to sell, and it came upon us, and I'm extremely glad that we did, because it offered the opportunity for a reset into something that would align more with our values. Like you said, we started this thing as basically kids, where both of our motivations were how can we pay our mortgage and feed our kids that are on the way, right? And that evolved to how can we maximize EBITDA and all these concepts that you just learn along the way. Well, once you've developed that, you see the world completely different. We probably would have re-architected our company completely different in hindsight, as would nearly anyone. And I think with stealth, one of the things that the two of us have kept, that we acknowledge is, you mentioned going about it alone. It's not just about having to solve challenges and everything rolling up to you alone at the top, but it's also about celebration. I mean, it's lonely enough. There's such a small percentage of even, entrepreneurs that grow successful companies, and who you can talk to about challenges. It's a completely different world. And then to go through something incredible, and then to not really have anyone who cares as much as you do to celebrate that. When we land a really incredible client, we call each other and celebrate. That's a micro celebration, but that's what keeps you going. And I think with stealth, we had the opportunity to see so many bad decisions happen in the agency world. And by bad decisions, I mean clients that would be getting fantastic results, but not understand them. And we could only offer the services we could offer, and we could only go so far. And when you see, these business owners that you empathize with because you are one, and you see them struggling, and you see how many of them get taken advantage of because they're just getting sold a service, and no one's really invested in the outcome of what they're growing. And I think with Stealth, we're we stand for justice as it relates to business owners getting value for what they're investing in. And this was the opportunity for us to say, yeah, you're not just paying us for a service. You're investing because we're gonna give it our all. We're gonna make this work.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you say that, I start to think about just, our experience in the trenches and just knowing how much we know coming out of that industry. We know where the bodies are buried, right? Like we weren't the biggest, but we were a player in that space, and we had a lot of success, and we did a lot of high volume of projects that we had exposed to. We had some really good scale and technology that you actually wrote all of the technology that our platform was powered off of, which created a lot of value within the organization, and also too made our client base really sticky. That was also a unique thing that we had, right? Like people were on our platform. So like as we started to think about that, and the shift was like, when we started to kind of ideate around Stealth, was like, man, all these entrepreneurs, like I see the same problems, which are like every entrepreneur, right? Let's just keep on the visionary CEO. Like if that person's in the marketing seat, something's going to blow up at some point. Like that's just the reality. Like that's not a long-term solution. Or what I saw a lot of clients do in our experience was they would hire they thought that they were a great marketer, and they'd stick them in that seat and have all these expectations that, this person's going to do X, Y, and Z. To come to find out, they just do a lot of nothing, and they spend a lot of money, wasted time. But like the big one I saw was, man, I spent a lot, we're spending a lot of money with, this agency or this company, and like we have no idea what we're getting in return. And I think what was interesting as we started to develop this concept, it's like every entrepreneurial company for the most part falls into one of those buckets. So like thinking back, we're kind of rounding out like our second full year, but you know, maybe think about from a delivery perspective or like an operational perspective of some of the things that, you touched on a minute ago about um certain things within the web world, and just what happens on the, like when we're dealing with companies and they're spending money on the agency world, just that gap you saw operationally, which kind of led us to where we're at today, and like the how we've kind of morphed in our deliverable now and how we're solving a problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's this big misunderstanding that there's someone that you call a marketer, and anyone in marketing is a marketer. These are marketers, right? It's the same thing as if I were to say, "Oh, you're a hockey player," right? If you were to put Wayne Gretzky between the posts to stop pucks, guess what? He's probably not making it to the Hall of Fame. If you were to put Patrick Waugh, Hall of Fame goaltender, in center or in Gretzky's position, he's probably not scoring enough goals to make it to the Hall of Fame. And there's this idea, but yeah, he's a hockey player. So every position, he should be an incredible coach. He should be an incredible scorer, a defenseman, a goalie, all of these things because he's a hockey player. People have that same perception about you're in marketing. You should be this incredible marketer in every aspect of it. And it's really just not, it's not realistic. Marketing is one of those few departments that really touches almost every aspect of a business. You have such an incredible technology component to it. You got to wire up 1,500 things to make sure that they all work. You've got to be a behavioral psychologist and know how to use language to connect with people and their emotions. You've got to have a visual aesthetic of color theory and how the world works. So then you've got to stay on top of all the modern technologies and devices and everything new coming to the market and all the disruptions. Then you have to be able to lead people, and you have to be able to explain concepts that people don't understand and be a translator. And when you write all those things down, it's really, really impossible to try and find that all within one person. It doesn't exist, myself or anyone. And then to try and have the expectation that I'm going to find that within a junior marketing coordinator who's 2 years out of school is even more unrealistic, to yourself and to that person. And we've seen so many times where that just goes very wrong because of that perspective.
Well, I think what we learned early on too, right? If we reflect back at like the first 6 to 12 months of us coming out of the gate and creating stealth in this concept, it was, there's this big void in the marketplace, and it's called the fractional CMO, right? And I think what we quickly realized and learned, and I think our experience led us to do this in an expedited fashion, which was, you can't just plop in, to your point of the Wayne Gretzky and Patrick Waugh. It's a perfect analogy, because CMO has this connotation to it that, I've become a CMO, and like I'm not gonna like roll my sleeves up and do the dirty work. I'm really good at strategy, right? Like that's the kind of what happens in that world. And I think what we realize, it's like, well, for me anyway, as a visionary and not getting too far in the weeds of marketing, it's you need somebody that's good at strategy, and that's their highest best use of their time. You also need somebody that's really good at just getting stuff done. That's just execution, which we call a marketing director. And then you also need a project manager to make sure that the trains are on time and that, everything's happening. And then on top of that, you need somebody to lead it, manage it, hold it accountable. So we're not just talking about like one fractional person. Like we're talking about dropping 4 people into an engagement, but you need the goalie, you need the defenseman, you need the forward, you need the center. Like, and I think like there's such a gap in the marketing world of, the fractional arena, and or even a client that says, I've got, Susan in marketing and we're good, but like they have so many gaps in that ecosystem. Is that kind of how you see it?
100%. I mean, I look at it like I'm going to be making you the most incredible birthday cake you've ever had. Well, you don't need the same amount of eggs as you do flour and sugar and everything that goes into it. If you took a equal amount of every ingredient that goes into that recipe, it would be terrible. And most companies you don't need a full-time project manager, a full-time marketing tech stack person, a full-time designer, and a full-time developer. You create this massive cost imbalance to where you're investing, right? You might only need 10% of the time of a marketing tech stack person. You might only need 5% of the time of a designer and then 80% of your time as a writer. And finding that what is the right recipe is really, where companies need to be focused. And that's what the advantage of a team does, without the investment cost of that full team. And then expecting that, I'm just going to bring in, in the cake example, I'm just going to bring in flour, and hey, flour, it's your job to be an incredible cake. And flour can't do that.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting about this is, I don't know the correct number, but I like the number 8,000. I don't know why, but there's 8,000 things you can do in marketing, right? Like, and I think the biggest dilemma and challenge for an entrepreneur is like, where do we begin? And like, they're so used to just throwing crap at the wall, hoping it sticks, even when they have a smart marketer in. And here's the biggest challenge, I think, from an entrepreneurial perspective. They hire these marketing people, and they could be the best marketing people, but they need to be led and managed, and they need a strategy, and they need to know where the company's going. And that's really hard for the owner to figure out. So, I think, when we talk about our delivery team and we look at that, right? Like, how are we looking at that from out of the 8,000 things? Because marketing means different things to different people at different times and different levels of the company, right? So like what's unique about like our approach, or just what's different in the marketing world that your operational approach kind of hits on the stealth method or platform.
Yeah. Marketing is chaos. Marketing can just be pure chaos from two different sides, right? There's you really observe two big spectrums that are just where marketing is chaos. One is where someone's trying to do what you described. There's 8,000 things. They're trying to do all 8,000 things, everything all at once, all right now, and there's that feeling, if we don't, then we're behind. And then our competitors are going to get ahead of us because we're not doing everything that they are. And then what happens is you end up trying to do 200 things and nothing quite works right because you're spread way too thin. There's no prioritization. The other side of the chaos is there's no shortage of 100 people trying to sell you something in marketing, or some blog about what you should be doing and you're not doing, the top 10 ways you're falling short of your employees' expectations in marketing. And so that chaos, that noise just leads to, you know what, I'm not going to do anything because I'm not even sure what I should do. So I'm not going to do anything. And I think one of the first things that when you talk about marketing accountability, someone comes in and brings that with the strategy, is some of the bulk of the work is simply just prioritization. Is that if we did this thing first, it would lead to these other paths, and then those paths would lead to these paths. Instead of trying to walk every path at the same time, let's do the one that makes the most sense, that's going to compound all the other ones that come after it.
Yeah, you bring a good point, and I also think too, I think there's a big value where, when we're around a founder, like who do they talk to? Like take us out of the equation, right? Or like you and I have had an opportunity to like leverage each other because we're partners and we both have been, through some experiences. So like we can kind of have those conversations that we can't have with some other people, right? But if you're an owner doing $5 million and you've got a marketing question, to your point, everybody and their brother is trying to sell you something. They're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. But like, who do they go to, right? That's going to shoot them straight. And I think there's a big value there, that just being able to be with a company individual that will just shoot you straight. That's not trying to sell you anything, but like, hey, we're a partner. Like, we're not sitting across the table from you trying to sell you this widget. This is how we would make a decision if we were in your shoes. And oh, by the way, we have some experience. So we're not like talking out of our ass. It's, we have some proof in the pudding. What do you think about that? Because you sit really heavily in the operations. So like, we onboard a client and we start to like do our thing. Like, what do you typically start to see when we start to do our thing?
It's amazing how much risk influences marketing. And that's really where that founder, they get to some peace of mind. And that is where every time, even if you've executed something in marketing 10,000 times before it, there's always some risk that some variable, something is going to negatively affect it, or it's not going to work exactly as you thought. Right. So anytime you're saying, let's go forward, there's some element of risk to that. And founders they just deal with risk on a daily basis. Every decision that they're making has some element of risk to it. There's never 100% certainty. And I think when you get to show up for the founder, and then they're really battling with this thing that's been spinning around in their mind, should I? And to be able to bounce that off of someone that's going to approach it with honesty and say, hey, it's not a no. It could be a yes. And here's what we risk. Or, here's something else that maybe we can want to consider, or here's how it impacts everything else that we're doing. It might add risk to everything else that we're doing. And that's a very, and also founders, especially, as soon as you get to a new achievement in your business, you're at a new level. It's often you forget the costs and the resources and the energy and effort that it goes to maintain that level.
Yeah.
because as soon as you reach a level as a founder, typically you're looking at what is the next one. And then so all resources go to the next one, where you still have to be conscious of what's gotten you there. I believe it's Warren Buffett that says it takes 20 years to build a reputation, and it takes 20 seconds to destroy one. And the larger the company and the more that's at stake or at risk, the more carefully that has to be considered. And as a founder, it's beneficial for you to offload that consideration.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is like there needs to be a something between a client and then like an agency, right? Like we've experienced it on so many different levels, but it's almost like I love a good analogy, and we talked about hockey, but like you've mentioned drywaller, like without the architect understanding the needs of that homeowner, that home buyer, like, and if you let that drywaller, again, the best drywaller in the world, build a wall randomly, like it's not going to do you any favors. So I think there's a deep level of architecture, flushing out ideas, growth. That's why I think you and I both agree that we love clients that are on EOS, because they've already baked that cake. They've done the hard work. They've had the challenging conversations. They've met with leadership. They've kind of laid out their 10-year crazy target. They have a 3-year goal in revenue. And there's all these things out there that like always talk about revenue growth, but I've yet to find anything outside of us that really focuses in on, spending time in marketing and actually planning and doing it the right way. So we created like a blueprint. Talk a little bit about that design and the architecture and why that's so important, because I think that's what we realize what companies miss. And that's really, the architecture of the success of somebody's marketing. Like share a little bit about that.
Yeah. Uh, there's the expression, nobody's smarter than the market, which I completely believe in. And one of the things that always comes up in blueprints, I tell everyone that's in there is, I ask everyone, what line of work are you in? What business are you in? And everyone's got their, I'm in HVAC and in this. And really the answer to that is, well, you're in the pain relief business. We're all in the pain relief business. We all just have a different kind of pill. And often we forget that success means that you have to be customer obsessed, and the blueprint is our way to show up as the advocate of a business's customer and say, you might understand it, but as the customer, I don't understand it, and if I don't understand it, I'm definitely not going to buy it. And so the blueprint allows us to really get to what is the heart of what you do. What is the pain that you're really solving for people? Because that's what we're gonna go out there and communicate, and that's what's going to get people interested. And often, consistently, is that the people we take through the blueprint, it's one of the most thorough ways that they've ever looked at marketing, because the typical agency approach is, what do you sell? Okay, here's how many people are searching for what you sell. We're going to need $10,000 a month, and let's go buy some ads for what people are searching. And that really just doesn't work anymore like it used to. If you're not, what we forget is that we're not selling to companies. We're not selling to technology. We're selling to people, and people have emotions. People, I use this example in blueprints, is that I can say the same thing that will be received differently by everyone else in the room. If I tell a team of executives that we're going to be implementing HubSpot, the CEO is going to be like, crap, like how much is that going to cost us? The CMO is going to say, sweet, this is incredible. The chief information officer is going to say, great, just another platform to maintain. You're going to have, so I'm saying the exact same thing, but because it's people showing up, they're all going to hear it and interpret it and feel it much different. And that is where marketing has to start. It's not enough just to get a message out there. You really have to be conscious of how people are going to hear it, or even if they're going to hear it, because that's where success is all driven on that. If it's Google, if it's Facebook, any of those, they're just vehicles to deliver that message. But what that message is and understanding your audience, that's really where it needs to start.
Yeah, I mean, we've been around the block, right, for a while, and I think one of the biggest questions I would always get is, "How much should I be spending on X?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like, I don't even know if you should be on that platform. Like, there's a lot of questions, and I think that, following back up on that example of spending 10,000 a month, I think 9.5 times out of 10, those are the people I talk to that said, "I've been spending 10,000 a month, and I have no idea what I'm getting," which leads to my next question, which is, what's the best CRM? And I'm like, well, something you'll actually use, number one. But number two, like, talk a little bit about HubSpot, because we come from a wide range of like our own custom proprietary software that we use to, we've been all in deep in this Salesforce ecosystem and all these challenging technologies. But, we've landed on HubSpot. Why? Like, what is that, as a stealth, as an organization and to our clients, why are we putting HubSpot on a pedestal above everything else?
Yeah, it's stability and convenience, right? Often companies say we're going to develop our own. I fell into this trap as a younger person, which is we're going to develop our own CRM, or we're going to develop our own technology. Why? Because our process is so unique to anything out there that there's no possible way anything else would work for us. What people don't realize is when they make that decision, you're deciding to now be in the technology business, which means everything else that comes around with it. Developing a system is 5% of the effort. Maintaining and supporting a system is the other 95% plus. That is the real reality. And if you have the opportunity to offload the accountability and the stability of something like that, do it. And also, there's a reason platforms become market leaders, because they spend an immense amount of time. They've got an immense amount of data. You've got many people making decisions that in your lifetime you may not ever even learn why they're the best decision, but you just have to trust that they are. And there's a great expression one of my mentors told me, which was, a good plan in action is better than a perfect plan on the grease board. And the same is true with HubSpot. It might not be perfect in every single nuance that you would prefer, but it's sure a lot better than mass confusion and disorganization.
Yeah, and to me as a visionary, right? Like, I care about my team and like, is this working? Is it not working? How are you feeling? And to me, HubSpot is like, it's the truth, right? So if you are investing in marketing, which everybody should be to some degree, you also should be tracking it. And most companies don't track it. They have no idea. Or they say, yeah, let me get back with you. And they're like firing emails, trying to cobblestone all this information together. Then they'll share the data with you and be like, I think this is sort of accurate, but like, I really don't know. I mean, it's shocking at how many companies are like that. So I look at HubSpot and I hear all that, right? But I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like, well, who's going to manage that? Right? Like that, not now what? Because it's a great software, but like who in the organization is going to implement that, keep that up to date? Like, what are some challenges you see around that?
Yeah, one, things are always going to break, and you're not going to know when. So you can try, but you're not always going to know when something's going to break. You're not always going to know why is something going to break. And so, as an operator, as the CEO of Stealth, what I'm mainly focused on with and why that system is chosen, even for ourselves, is what is the speed at which I can get something that I don't know that is going to break back functioning. Right? There is a plethora of HubSpot resources out there. We have our own internal now, but that means that I want same day if I can, and because if the system is down, if everything is down, I'm losing. And as an operator, one of my key focuses is stability, and it presents itself as an extremely stable system with a massive ecosystem of people that wake up every day with a passion to continue that stability. That's why I think it's one of the best choices you can make.
Yeah, and I think for us, like one of the things I think how we solve that is like we help clients with that, right? It's like just like you don't need a full time person in marketing, or you're not going to find that unicorn. there's certain aspects of it that we help clients through, like especially on the architecture of the setup and designing it away and potentially helping them find the right resource long term. But kind of changing gears, right? So, like, from an AI perspective, I talk to a lot of people and they're like, well, are you going to use ChatGPT? And I'm like, well, I like tools that help us do our job better. Just like if I'm going to hire a contractor to do drywall, like I want them to have the best technology, the strongest resources, blah, blah, blah. But like, what do you see? Because again, somebody said, well, like I could go to ChatGPT and get a strategy. Like, absolutely you could, and it's going to be amazing. But who's going to do it, right? Like, that's the challenge. Like, who's actually going to see it through? So, like, what do you see from an AI perspective? Because you and I come from deep roots in organic SEO. Like, I would kind of say we pioneered a lot of that. But now you have GEO, generative, all these different acronyms. Like, what do you see there in the shift of like what was web SEO, et cetera, to like what's kind of brewing and coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, AI at its core is it gives people the ability to delegate intelligence, right? We've been able to delegate so much. Now we can actually delegate intelligent thought. One of the big challenges is its inherent bias, right? Social platforms are designed to keep you, well, I'm not going to say addictive because it's called engaged, but they want you coming back to the platform. An AI has the same motivation, is to, I want you, the closer I can tailor the response that I give you to something that I feel like you will be satisfied with, the more likely you are to continue to use me. That is what Google's motivation has been for years. I give a talk where search engines died in 1999, right? Recommendation engines were born. Google realized that it's not enough just to give you a result that matches what you're looking for. We would go out of business if we did that. I have to give you a result that you're then going to take and have a great experience with. That means that I am responsible for recommending. I got to give you a quality recommendation. And that is the same thing that AI deals with. You're not going to use me if what I'm giving you, you're not actually satisfied with. So the danger of running things like a marketing strategy or something through an AI, which you can absolutely output something that's beautiful and probably passes a sniff test, and some agencies out there charging $8,000 for, but it is catering to what it thinks you want to hear and what you want to see. It is not going to challenge what is actually reality. So the danger is that you're just surrounding yourself basically with an intelligence system that is another form of a yes man, and you have to have resources around you that are going to bring a different perspective, that are going to challenge that, not just tell you what you want to hear objectively. And that is where the other aspect that AI is, it's absolutely going to change the way that we do things. There's this idea that, well, with AI, there will no longer be opportunities for junior positions, and I would argue that actually that couldn't be further from the truth, because we're going to have a need for junior positions. We're going to have a need for people to be able to work their way up in expertise, and AI can be a trainer. Your senior people, their time is at the highest capacity. They, what comes up in every quarterly employee survey? I wish we had more training and education. I wish there was more communication, right? Because the senior people don't have the time to do all of the training and education. Remote work has just made that even more difficult. Well, that is something where AI can really come in and help offload some of that training, so more junior people can be more successful faster. There's a lot of agencies out there in the market that see AI as a threat. And as well as I do at Stealth, AI is not a threat. It's something that has to be embraced because it's only going to grow. And an agency, instead of looking at it as a threat, should look at it as, man, this could be one of the best most incredible efficiency enablers. This is an opportunity for us to be able to do more for our clients. That should be the motivation.
Yeah, I reflect back on a couple things. Like I just reflect back in our heyday at high level marketing and the amount of people we had. And I remember just like me banging my head against the wall, being like, what does this person do? Like, couldn't we consolidate these four people to one? And I look at AI now as like, you get A, B, I even hate to see C players, but like they need more capacity. And if we have a tool now that gives them more capacity, like that's really exciting to think about being like a 30, 40, 50 person company, but we operate like a 500 person company if you look back 10 years ago. Pretty amazing stuff. But what I want to ask you directly though, like we entered the SEO market when like the yellow pages was like dying, right? Physical books were still being dropped off on your porch, right? And we hedged this bet that we're going to get into this market, and we dominated local organic search. Like I don't nobody really touched us, I think, from a local perspective in 2009 till like 14 probably. Like what do you see for like the GEO, all this other stuff that's coming down the pipeline? Do you see like SEO the way we knew it, organic and just traditional Google search? Like do you see that just, I don't know. Do you see that as the new yellow pages, or are we a little bit away from that, or what's sort of in your mind there?
Absolutely. Search is just a more rudimentary version of GEO, of generative
And
search,
what's
right?
generative? Before you go, stick on
Let me
that.
explain that.
Can you explain generative quickly?
Yeah, generative is essentially where you're looking for a deeper recommendation than just results, a list of results that now you have to curate, you have to identify what looks legitimate, what doesn't. Generative is, so if you're using a ChatGPT, you're using a Siri, you're using Gemini, Copilot, anything where you're using an AI base, it's a language learning model to do research for you. That's essentially what generative search is. It's the ability to offload the research and give you the executive summary of it, right? Like we hear a lot. Everyone wants a dashboard, or nobody wants a dashboard. What people want are insights. They want someone to look at the information and say, "Here's what I recommend that you should do." If you go to Google, what it's going to do is it's going to give you a list of results that you now have to make all kinds of decisions on. Does that look like it's a legitimate company? I've met individuals that only click on the paid ads. Why do they only click on the paid ads? Because they say, well, those are the ones I can trust. Because if a company is willing to pay money, that is a company that I can trust. I'm not going to click on any of the free results because that's all the spam. With a generative search, with like a ChatGPT, it's just built in to weed out what it thinks might be spam, and why go through the hassle of looking at a bunch of results? It's kind of like if you're working with a designer that says, hey, here's 500 tile samples, tell me which one looks great. No, thank you. Here's 2 tile samples, and by the way, these are ones that I've vetted. This is what they look like in a room, and here's the top 3 reasons why I think this one is your choice. That's the experience people want. But the old school fundamentals of search engine optimization still apply to today's generative search, and it all comes down to, this is the biggest misconception I would see with everyone that would try to do search engine optimization, was it's about backlinks. It's about these 300 different micro metrics and everything like that. And what people lost sight of is, no, it's about the value of the content and how the content is structured. Because if a search engine, if a Google, if a Anthropic, if a ChatGPT, if it doesn't read the content and understand what the content's about, you have no chance of that ever being seen as relevant. And that's where you have to start.
So then what about everybody? Like I can see ChatGPT content a mile away on like LinkedIn and stuff, and it just like people fail to like take out the emojis. But like what is how does that impact it, right? Like I see all these agencies or people peddling now like hundreds of pages of content and we'll build out your blogs for you and like all the stuff that, we had to hire people for to manually do the right way. People are probably familiar with like white hat SEO, black hat SEO, but like how does that impact all this now? So you have
Yeah.
like the search function of like accessing it and using it, but then you have people that are leveraging this tool to like create all that stuff, right?
Yeah, there's the trinity of delivery is fast, cheap, and good. Pick two, right? And those kinds of things. One of the byproducts of ChatGPT is it's allowed a lot of people to create things very fast and very cheaply, but it lacks that quality. So while you can create something like that, it's always about what can everyone else do too. So if the barrier to entry is so minimal, then it does not have a future, because it is too far easily replicatable by everyone else out there, and to the point that we're all becoming experts in being able to recognize it. I mean, as soon as I see an emoji or a double dash in a Word doc, you already, yep, that's AI. And it starts to have its signatures.
Yeah, there's nothing like an employee sending you a follow up email too, where it's all Chat GPT and emojis too. That's like the worst.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you're. We'll take the Stanley mug. Um, really cool until everyone has one. It's really the truth about many things. It can be really cool until everyone has one, and when it becomes so easy for everyone to get one, it's no longer that cool. And it's a shortcut. And in marketing, I found is there really are not shortcuts.
Yeah. Yeah, we covered a decent amount today, but I think we could probably sit here for 24 hours and talk about a lot of different things. But kind of wrapping to this, like you just recently wrote a book. You want to talk about the book you created? Like obviously there's passions outside
Yeah.
of AI and CMOing and solving entrepreneurial challenges, but like talk a little bit about your book and how people get in contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And you can get the book at notloststarting.com. The big driver of this, the book is called "You're Not Lost, You're Just Starting: How to Make Anything Possible." Is I've got two teenage kids, and the biggest question that was going around school, especially for my son, thank you, Wes, is where's he going to college? Where's he going to college? And obviously you went to school of hard knocks, and I have an architecture degree that I've never done anything with. Right. Best thing we did was,
Well, you kind of have though.
yeah, a little bit. But in hindsight, the value I got from college was not the degree that I think is in a box in my basement somewhere. It was the acclimation to life and into meeting friends. But the way people ask where are you going to college today is basically what career are you choosing? What is your path to financial gain? And that's really what they're asking. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? And I found that I don't know what I'm necessarily going to be doing in 5 years. I have a thought, but I wanted my kids to be ready for anything. And in the age of AI, we may have no idea today what the jobs 10 years from now with the impact of AI have. And I wanted my kids to be able to be very prepared to say, I need to make a pivot, or this is the way I'm going to go. Not, oh man, I have one shot at life. I made this big decision and now my entire life plan is derailed. That wasn't what I wanted to set them up for. And the the lessons in the book are really all the things that we've learned as entrepreneurs, which are, just, you can't be afraid to ask. And if there's a setback, just learn from it and keep moving on, because we can't do anything about the past. All we can do in golf, it's the expression is all that matters is the next shot. That's all we've got. And that's what we got to keep a focus on. And the book is really designed for people that are, man, I'm not happy. I'm a teenager. I'm thinking about where's my life going to go next, or someone that's been in a position for 10 years and saying, I'm not really that happy here, but I don't know where to start to make a change. Well, to show up to the world like an entrepreneur and to live as free as we do, you don't have to start a business. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to mortgage a house. You don't have to go all in on something. You can start applying. You can start showing up like an entrepreneur. First, just be the CEO of yourself. Like Wes, you're Wes, CEO of Wes Matthews. And that means that even if you have to work for someone, you still represent yourself. Look, I had to work for 3 years at one of the biggest multi-carrier wireless companies, and they were really just my biggest client. They were my employer, but your employer is really just your biggest client. And if you show up like
that's a really unique way to look at it.
Yeah.
That's your biggest client, because not everybody's bred to be an entrepreneur, but you still have to have that passion and kind of have that ownership behind whatever it is you're doing and have passion. Otherwise it's like, like my 9 to 5. I hate my life. I hate my job. Hate what I'm doing. That's interesting. So you can reach out to Jon direct, or go to Amazon, get the book, reach out to Stealth, he'll sign a copy. But how can people get in contact with you? We covered a lot today. There's a lot to talk about, but what's the easiest way to get in contact with you or not get in contact with you?
Easiest is a website, jonbowerman.com, or you can go to stealthconsulting.com as well.
Cool. All right, Jon, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
This has been another episode of Entrepreneur Intel. Thank you for joining us. For show notes or other episodes, please visit us at entrepreneurintel.com. Until next time.